take a moment at 11 a.m. on November 11th to remember the sacrifices of our veterans, and many of us wear a poppy in the weeks leading up to Remembrance Day. We remember the fallen. How many of us are aware of the military personnel and their families in our midst, however, active duty as well as veterans and their loved ones who have transitioned to civilian life? How many of us truly understand their circumstances, their needs, their challenges? Today we're going to talk about the Canadian Walk for Veterans, a fun and healthy way to bring the military and civilian communities together and help to bridge that knowledge gap. Here to tell us about it are Andrea Pritchard, Veteran Family Program Navigator at the Kingston Military Family Resource Centre, Brianne Lambert, Public Relations Coordinator at KMFRC, as well as Robert Hamilton, 25-year veteran and a Knight of the Order of St. George. Welcome all.
Thank you.
First of all, what is the Canadian Walk for Veterans? And somebody give me a brief history of how this was engendered and what it's out to do.
The Canadian Walk for Veterans had its origins in British Columbia just a few years ago as a very preliminary initiative to raise funds in support of a particular veterans program. It's evolved since that time, actually survived through the pandemic in a kind of virtual sense. And what it is essentially an organized walk with a certain fee for service. Participants are recognized with a coin and a certificate. There is a modest amount of fundraising, and each year the Walk for Veterans designates an official charity as the recipient of the funds. Last year, for example, it was a large veteran support organization called True Patriot Love. But for the very first time last year, the Kingston Military Family Resource Centre, largely at my encouragement on behalf of the Order of St. George, undertook to deliver the walk. And it was, I have to say, it was an enormous success. It was a success because it was fun, the participation was sufficient in spite of the weather, but mostly because it drew attention to the Kingston Military Family Resource Centre. So much so that it was viewed as a success by the organizer, so that this year the walk is going to take place, I've heard as many as 130 locations. The charity that is designated as the recipient of the residual funds are the Military Family Resource Centres in Canada, and that brings me enormous satisfaction. And as you will find, this year the KMFRC is the delivery agent once again. So it's a really exciting program, raises a little bit of money, creates a lot of awareness, and it's healthy and it's fun. So you might say it's all on the side of the angels.
We'll talk a little bit more about the KMFRC later. What does the walk strive to accomplish beyond the fundraising? You talked a little bit about the raising awareness.
To my mind, it is about raising awareness with the participants about the life and challenges of veterans. Today's veterans, not only those in the past, but the people who are veterans today. There are plenty of challenges, and by creating awareness through an initiative which is enjoyable and not costly, over time I expect many more Canadians will understand veterans as they exist today than they have in the past. And I think it's a pretty exciting thing to do. I'm personally looking forward to this year's walk. I took part last year as well. And the more it grows, the better it will be.
One of the things I found very heartening recently in terms of Remembrance Day and remembering the fallen is the number of young children who the school system make very, very aware of it. And I know there's a ceremony before the Remembrance Day ceremony at the Kingston Cemetery where the kids are involved, deeply involved in it. Is it the hope that this walk will bring families out and help educate the younger people about not only the sacrifices of the past, but the current situation that veterans and active duty families are involved in.
Absolutely, that we want to raise awareness for our current families, and we talk about the veterans, but this opportunity also brings a chance to bring awareness for our active serving military members as well as first responders. And having a chance to come shoulder and shoulder at a common event, and there's going to be an opportunity to learn about supports and services available and what we have to offer them here in the community. And Andrew is going to speak to that a little bit more with our veteran family program, for instance, of what kind of supports they have access to at the KMFRC and, you know, in the community as well.
I think people have a sense, well, they think they know just because they ponder it briefly what the military lifestyle is like or what the experiences are, but until you've walked in their shoes, you really don't know. And I think it's an opportunity just to bring everyone together, to bring the community, because there's not a single one of us that doesn't have a friend or a family member or a colleague that's a spouse of a serving member, a veteran, or a first responder. Like, they're all around us. And so I think it's just to bring more awareness and attention to what they're sacrificing. I don't think we could really exist as we do without all of those first responders, veterans, military members. So it's just bringing that awareness and that light and bringing the community together as a way to say thank you and acknowledge what they're doing, because it is a sacrifice. The whole family is experiencing it, not just that one individual.
Just give me a little sense of what it is that a family has to deal with that the average person or the average family doesn't have to deal with.
Some of the different challenges that we experience is, that the families will experience, is a big one is absences. And that can be a whole wide range, from overseas deployments to frequent travel for trainings. There's also imposed restriction, which we call IR. So that's where just the member will go to a post and their family stays behind. And sometimes, a lot of times we think like, oh, high stress, that deployment overseas. But we have found that the families that are experiencing a loved one coming in and out of the home frequently on a more regular basis can be really overwhelming, and it disrupts the routine. So you have to go through that. And I would say another large one that is experiences relocations. The constant moving and rebuilding to a new location is like a huge amount of stress. With the kids, if you have children, having to make new friends at new schools and new health care that you need to try to set up, it can take a huge toll on a family, having to do that over and over and over again. Especially
if the kids have special needs, if there's extra curriculars that they're involved in, their friends, there's just so many layers to it. Spouses having to renegotiate friendships and feeling a part of a community, having no one to lean on when they're the sole provider for the family in that moment while their loved one is deployed or away. There's just so many pieces that we don't really understand, but we're there as the MFRC. And I mean, me personally, just like the general community doesn't understand. But there's so many layers to what their experiences are, and the way that I look at it is we're there to try to catch them. We're there to help them feel that they're not alone, that there is so much support, that at any point in time they can pick up the phone and call. I think there's just a lot of misconception about that it's just, some people will say, you signed up for this, you knew what you were getting into, and that's just a very flippant way to regard, the military life, and it's not respecting and honoring that there is sacrifices that they did choose to make to be a part of that family, but there's still sacrifices and challenges that they have to face, and we need to be respectful, and we need to, I like to use the word honor, but honor that. We need to respect their learned and lived experience and grow from that and try to model our programs and supports around what their needs are.
Again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in depth later, but I just wanted to go back to the walk itself, which is going to help the Family Resource Center immeasurably. The whole, it's kind of a hybrid event now, is it not? It's And COVID, of course, it's one of the things maybe we can thank COVID for, one of the few things, that it's taken this event and made it, rather than a series of walks inside communities, it's made it a national thing. Maybe talk to that a little bit.
So it's going to be happening, like we said, across Canada on September 23rd and 24th. And so we have selected our day as September 24th. It's going to take place at the KMFRC. And then those who can't join us in person are going have the chance to do it virtually as well. So they still go onto the website and sign up and have a chance. And we actually will have people join us all over the world, actually. We've had people come and sign up and join from that aspect as well.
So anybody who's watching this show, hey, let people know. Send them to the website. The graphic will be up on screen. To get more information, and people can participate here in Tuktoyaktuk, in Prince Albert, wherever. I think that's a really good thing. That's maybe one of the positive, as I say, things that came out of the whole COVID thing, is that it's made it. Now, is the intent for this to be permanent, going forward year by year, that this is going to be participation online as well as in person?
That's what we're anticipating, is that it's going to continue to be a hybrid event, and we are hoping that we are honored with the opportunity to, host it year after year. So we'll see. There's not 100% guarantee that it will be able to be something that we can do, but we're going to strive for having the KMFRC host it for the in-person portion, and also we're planning on having extra things added in for the family this year to make it a fun experience. So face painter for the kids, and little barbecue and live music, and the Kona ice truck is going to join us as well. So we're making an event out of it in addition to doing the walk. Like we said, it is a 5-kilometer walk, but there is going to be an option to do half a route, so it's more accessible, so everyone can join in that. Everyone who signs up will get a commemorative coin, and this year's theme for that is really nice. It depicts the iconic image from the World War, Wait for Me Daddy, and it says Heroes of the Homefront on it. So it's a really nice takeaway, and everyone who signs up will get that coin, which was actually made from a veteran-owned company in Esquimalt, BC.
Okay, that's a good place to take a break. We'll, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the Family Resource Center and the services you offer. We'll be back in a moment. And we're back, and we're talking about the Canadian Walk for Veterans coming up on September 24th. This year in Kingston, as well as Canada-wide, worldwide on that weekend. Robert, I just wanted to ask about the you're a member, a knight, a chevalier of the Order of St. George. What is the order, very briefly, because it dates back to 1400 and we don't have a lot of time, but what is the order, and what is its, how is it involved in this walk?
Well, the Order of St. George is a Canadian corporation. It has as its purpose the support of military members, families, veterans, and also the Canadian Cadet Program. It is a chivalric organization, as you might imagine, but it also has its charitable foundation. It chooses to deliver its charitable work through what we would call an implementing agent, if you will. As I mentioned earlier, we did so through the True Patriot Love Foundation, where we invested in bringing Afghan veterans to Canada. It has become so attractive, the whole concept of supporting the military family resource centers. As I said earlier, this is the target. Here in Kingston, we're a small organization. We have about 35 people. Over the years, we've built I think a healthy working relationship with the KMFRC, and we kind of built on that last year. So that's how we got involved, and it's become infectious, if you will. In the order, we now have interest in Toronto and interest in Ottawa. following suit. In fact, we will get a contingent from Ottawa to participate here in Kingston. How it presents is growing. As Brianne has pointed out, it's going to be serving the community need. There will be a piper from the Princess of Wales owned Regiment Foundation. The Royal Canadian Legion will provide its color party. These are wonderful things to have, but the advantage of having those is that they represent the actual product of outreach. And as it grows, it can only benefit the military family resource centers, and somewhat, I suppose, focusing entirely on Kingston. To us, that's where the rubber hits the road. The more we can do for the KMFRC, the better off we'll all feel.
Talking about the KMFRC, okay, what is it, and what is your purpose? What do you do?
So we are actually a nonprofit charitable organization, and we are there to support military and veteran families throughout their entire journey. So that is whether they're experiencing relocations, absences, transitions in or out of the military. And basically, I like to say we're like the bridge to the community. So we are there to answer their questions, connect them to resources, and sometimes even be a listening ear to help them individually. So we start off with, maybe our frontline level 1 information to give them the resources they might need when they're relocating to a new post. Or it goes into navigational support where we're having one-on-one, conversation and finding out what their struggles and challenges might be, and then we connect them with the appropriate supports. We have a team of about 50 approximately at the KMFRC. About half of that does also make up our Les Petits Amis Childcare Center, so we do also offer childcare for military. Is the priority on that, military families. And then the big part too is our veteran family program, which Andrea is going to share a little bit about that.
So through VAC, we receive funding to do the veteran family program. And my role is to support our medically releasing members and their families, as well as medically released veterans and their families. So we would never turn anyone away, anyone that's in need. They don't have to meet that criteria to receive support, but that's certainly the target population that we try to connect with. The intention is to try to reach them as early in that transition process as possible, because it's pretty stressful. Transitioning out of the military in and of itself, even for just retirement or a voluntary release, can be a lot. Moving into civilian life if they've had a career in military, in some cases can be really overwhelming, but add that medical layer to it, add that operational stress injury or PTSD, for example, and it makes it quite challenging. So we're there to try to catch the whole family unit. There's a fair bit of support for the member. We just want to make sure that the family also feels that we're there for them. They don't know where to turn a lot of the times. They are often left out of the equation because it is the military member's career path, even though it's a departure, so they don't sometimes bring the family in. And so we're just there to make sure that they have that foundation that they can come back to, that I'm there to speak to them if they just need an ear. I'm there to guide and support them to community services in the civilian realm or military related. There to help them help themselves, be a caregiver to that person if that's what's needed. Sometimes it's a lot of one-on-one support. Sometimes it's simply just referrals to other agencies. We also do workshops. So we do a mental health first aid to support the individual who's facing someone who's finding themselves challenged with their mental health for whatever reason. There's also something called Shifting Gears that we offer. That's a workshop to support people through that transition piece, that mental emotional struggle that they might have, and try to help them shift the lens that they're looking at that transition through to make it a little bit more graceful, less challenging. But it's a pretty vast program, and we meet every family where they are, and we support them in those unique needs, and that's the intention.
Okay. You mentioned medically released. Give me a little more detail. What is a medical release? What kind of things fall under that rubric?
Anything that indicates that that individual can no longer be in service. They're not deployable, for example, so they don't meet all of the markers that's required to be maintained or retained in service. It could be, as I said, PTSD, depression, anxiety. It could be a physical injury that just will not heal. I mean, really, it's going to be physical, mental, emotional. One of those pillars it's going to fall into, but it's pretty vast. Although I would say a majority of those that I work with, even if it's a physical injury, there is a certain layer of mental health there as well, right? You can't lose your livelihood or the path that you thought that you were going to go for the rest of your life without it impacting how you feel and how you think. And there's that loss of identity, that loss of purpose. Why am I getting up in the morning? So there's a lot of struggles and challenges there, and sometimes we get so caught up in our own individual process, we don't have the capacity to see the impact it has on those that we love and those that are living with us, and so we're trying to make sure that we support everybody, because that's essential.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are some of the other services that you offer? There's going to be obviously major things, but there's also the little things sometimes. What are some of the little things families have to deal with?
Sometimes it's just the day-to-day getting through. We do have casual care at our center, so sometimes parents, especially of younger children, feel just overwhelmed and they need a break. So that's something that we offer them, is come bring your children in, have a few hours, go and take a nap, go to your appointments, go do your shopping, just have time where you get to do whatever it is that you need to do in that moment for reprieve.
We'll run like a weekly coffee connections,
Yeah.
for instance. So every Wednesday morning, members of the community can come together and just create a support network. We bring in guest speakers from the community to provide them more information on resources. We do different workshops, so for like relocation binder workshop, for instance, or mental health first aid for the veteran community is another really large one. Connecting with legal advice clinic, wills workshops.
Yeah.
Those are some of the different workshops that we do. We try to have our standard, but then we're remaining responsive to the needs of the community. So we will adapt and deliver based on the trends. And right now, the big one is our childcare, medical, employment, having to start over and trying to get employment. So we put a lot into connecting with the employment agencies and those kinds of things. And another one too that I wanted to, we can't forget about our mental health and wellness department. So we are able to offer short-term counseling in-house, for instance, so say 1 to 6 sessions. But thanks to the United Way, we get funding in order to have our Community Resource Connection program, which allows us to refer to Resolve Counseling for that extended care. So again, that's made possible by funding from United Way. Our family information line, we do have a 24/7 line for emotional support and referrals. If anyone has any question at any time, it can be anyone in your circle of loved ones, you can contact the family information line and get support, and they'll tell you, contact your MFRC or go here for whatever it is. And sometimes they just need to know where their MFRC is. So they call the family information line, for instance.
Right. How long is a family eligible? So, for example, you leave the military, you go through the resources, and then 10 years later, you find that something is amiss with the ex-military person. There's issues within the family. Are they still basically in it for life?
Through my program, absolutely. There is no end date, it's indefinite. And I had someone not too long ago come in and they were 26 years out. And they didn't medically release, but at this point in their life, there was some things that they'd experienced through their service, and then life compounded on top of that they reached out. And it was lovely that they thought of us first. They were newer to Kingston and just didn't have that community, didn't have those resources, weren't familiar with who they could access or what or where, and they came to us. They walked in the door and they were directed straight to me, and it was amazing because they were in a place that they really needed help right away. So yeah, through my program, and then through my program, if I register them, they absolutely get to access the MFRC, the rest of the supports as well.
That is great to know, because some of these things don't show up right away.
Absolutely
They
not.
show up later and become a major issue. So it's a really good cause. The walk, when is it again? And
So-
where is it?
So it is happening at the Kingston Military Family Resource Center.
And where's that?
It is 32 Lundy's Lane, right amongst the base there. and the route is going to start and finish at the KMFRC. The route map will be available, but it's going to include going in and around the RMC, Royal Military College grounds as well. So it's going to be a beautiful walk where you're along the water. There's a nice little hill in there as well, but so quite a little challenge. And its registration and check-in is going to be at noon, and it's going to go right up until 4 o'clock because we're going to have fun activities taking place as well throughout the afternoon.
If you're interested in being involved or supporting it, go ahead. The information's been up on the screen. And thank you all for joining us, and good luck with it. And you never know, I might even come out and
Please do.
take a walk.
Please do.
Thanks
Yes.
for watching.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.